Hi, my name is Jamie Meyer. I'm a board certified health and wellness coach, a licensed heart math provider, and a yoga therapist. And today I'm speaking with Antonella Aguilera Ruiz. How'd I do?
Good. You did well. I know it's a mouthful. And that's not even all my names. So there you have it.
Dr. Antonella is a naturopathic doctor who practices functional medicine, and I'm so thrilled that you're here today. So many people ask me about functional medicine, naturopathic medicine, and I think many people are looking for alternatives and ways to take care of themselves that they may not really understand. So
Yeah.
I appreciate your taking the time.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I thought it would be fun to start just to hear a little bit about your journey and what brought you to this particular professional path.
Yeah, so my journey is really that of a patient first, of by necessity. So when I started college, so I'd had mono when I was in high school, and I was your typical type A student. I would like get up at 5. I think about on it now, and I think like that's just crazy. No wonder I was like burnt out and crispy when I was 17. So I would start class at 6:50 in the morning, and I'd sometimes do homework till midnight. So I was just on this schedule. I had gotten mono, thought I had gotten over it. And then I went to college, and about 3 weeks in, I had a sinus infection. And by that point, I had taken so many antibiotics for these recurrent sinus infections that there was a note on my chart that it was probably best to not keep giving me antibiotics. So my health care person at the student health center was like, we're going to run a couple more tests. And it came back that I had a chronic case of mono. So, this was maybe 2.5 years later, I still had this mono. And she was like, we're going to refer you to an infectious disease specialist, and I can write you a script for an antidepressant. And in that moment, I mean, I still remember being on the exam table and her telling me that. And I thought, this is obviously difficult, but that's not the answer. I wouldn't describe myself as depressed. It's not going to address what's really going on. And that really started a couple-year process of being really disappointed in conventional medicine, of not finding answers. The infectious disease specialist was sort of like, yep, that's what you've got. We can't really do anything about it. I was 18, by this time, sort of on this journey to start this whole new phase. And I was super tired. I had insomnia. I started gaining weight. I would get these terrible headaches. I was just a total mess, to the point that I had to take a year off of school. And my mom, she had taken me to different doctors, and she took me to a MD who did acupuncture, and the acupuncture helped. And he also did supplements and diet, but it was mostly the acupuncture. And then a chiropractic friend of my mom's said, there's this woman in town who owes me a favor. You should go see her. And she was a naturopathic practitioner. So she wasn't trained as a naturopathic doctor, but she knew herbs really well and nutrition really well. And she just got it. She was like, you're going to have to change your diet. You're going to have to take these herbs. You really need to stop being so perfectionistic and type A, and we need to look at your stress response. And got me to the point where I was well enough to go back to school. But at that point I had been pre-med. So I started as pre-med at Santa Clara, and I was like, man, I don't know if I can be that type of physician out in the world. Like, it's really, I was the type of patient that the system, I think, really honestly fails for the most part. And so I finished my degree. I went and studied abroad in Spain for 6 months and thought, well, I really like nutrition. I'll go be a chef. And as that process sort of got underway, I was like, I'm not sure I want to get in debt that much to be a chef. And I also feel like it's not my truest calling. So I started researching, like, what other programs are there out in the world that would have a holistic approach, that would look at nutrition, the role of the connection between the mind body, would have a bigger set of tools. And through a lot of trial and error, I eventually found naturopathic medicine, and that there were accredited schools in the US. And so it was literally like 2 weeks later, I was in Portland at a student for a day sort of info session. And it really spoke to that, like, revolutionary way of doing medicine, which I actually think is a really old school way of doing medicine, of seeing the whole person, herbs, supplements, really understanding what's going on for a person in all of their body and mind. And so I signed up to start in the fall, and here I am, I don't know, now like 12 years later or something.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I find it moving when there's a personal story,
Mm-hmm.
behind what brought you to your path. Would you say, I know there's a lot of talk about conventional medicine as sort of being disease focused.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that what you do is the opposite, or how I'm just curious.
Yeah, I might say that they're actually a complement. I think they're just trained with a different focus. And so I never want to put things in opposition to one another, because I really do think that there's a space for conventional medicine. If I have a heart attack, if I break a foot, I want those surgeons in acute care to be there.
Of
I
course.
think sort of my criticism, or where I would come in and say, it's like, I think it's very much diagnosis focused. It's like about figuring out a diagnosis and then matching that diagnosis to the known drug, and or for the most part that intervention is going to be a pharmaceutical or a drug. And
Okay.
then where we start to get issues is when people present with complex things that you're like, wow, I don't quite even have a diagnosis for this, and then I can't match it. But yeah, I think in a broad sense, it's very much about like management of disease and symptoms, because you aren't catching people earlier. And the lens isn't like, how do we prevent you from getting diabetes if we've got these early signs that you've got it? You
Mhm.
sort of have to wait for that diagnosis to be there, and then you match it to the medication, and then people can go on their way.
I see.
And
And
in my opinion, it's not
ideally,
sustainable.
somebody working with you would have protocol to prevent that from
Yeah.
developing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's um, sort of surprisingly, I use a lot of conventional blood work in my practice, probably different than a lot of functional practitioners out there, where I think there is value to a stool test, or looking at organic acids, some of those fancier panels. But I think where the real value comes is looking at conventional numbers and shooting for prevention and optimization, where we're starting to look at patterns, where we're not tied into finding a diagnosis and just saying like, nope, nothing's flagging red, move on. Or it's like, your last 3 blood sugars have been creeping up a little bit. They're not going to flag red, but I think there's a pattern here that we need to address now so that they never flag red. Or there's a few other values that we need to look at within even the conventional sort of laboratory testing that would give us some more information to see if this is something that we really need to be more aggressive about, or we need to look at other body systems to see how they're interconnected.
Hmm. Good. Thank you. Do you work with people who have insurance? Does it cover the kind of practice that you do? I know people have asked me about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't take insurance, and there's a few reasons for that, and then a few caveats to that. And it's really, insurance is a model where you're paid for your time and for diagnoses, and that's really the incentive, right? That if you need to code a visit correctly in order to get compensated. And the way that I'm working with people is we're taking tons of time, to educate, for me to understand their story. And insurance isn't the right model for that. And I don't want a third party having an influence on the decisions that we're making about someone's care.
Hmm.
So from a philosophical point of view, I don't take insurance because of that. But that being said, if people have health savings account, flexible spending accounts, there's places in the treatment protocol where that can be taken advantage of, because there's more flexibility in that money, right? Like for supplements or labs,
Hmm.
not necessarily for my fees. So I would say it's a hybrid, using some aspects of insurance, but really for the core of it, that is out of pocket.
Yeah. And that feels just totally appropriate now because it's kind of the Wild West out there, right? I mean, we have to do what we can do to
Yeah.
get the best care and to use whatever we have to our advantage that's possible. And legal,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. And I do, I go once a year, I have medical insurance, of course, for emergencies, and I meet with my primary care physician. And she and I have talked about how she's like, some days I would like to get this test, but I know insurance won't cover it. And so my decision making is influenced by what I can get covered. And I
Mhm.
think that just speaks to a greater problem within the American healthcare system. But the tools I don't need are MRIs. That's going to be a referral. So within that, I think it gives so much more autonomy to the patient and the doctor to really work outside of that model.
Mhm. So one of the things that a lot of people ask me is, why should they why should they opt to see a functional medicine practitioner if they,
Hmm.
you know, have the conventional doctor, so to speak, but they're
Yeah.
maybe stuck, maybe they've got something that they've never been able to solve. What would be the benefit of seeing a functional medicine practitioner?
Yeah. Well, granted, I'm a little bit biased. But I really think the benefit is that you hopefully gain a partner in your health. And I think that there's something really, not to sound like a MasterCard commercial, but like there's something intangible that you can't put a price on, that of someone who's really going to roll up their sleeves and listen for those subtleties. And I think having the peace of mind that, within reason and with control, that someone's lifted under and been like, could it be adrenal? Could it be toxicity? Could it be a nutrient deficiency? Are we ruling out autoimmunity if that needs to be ruled out? That really individualized, focused attention of looking at your health in that 360 degrees with time, with care, with ongoing support, that's incredibly valuable. And not to say that there aren't great primary cares out there, but because of time limits and those things, that's a much more difficult experience to emulate in a conventional setting. And so I think you get answers to things that are complicated, like my own case. Like, I had thyroid issues, I had gained weight, I had migraines, I had insomnia. All of that in conventional medicine unfortunately adds up most likely to a psychiatric diagnosis. So, you know, to go and find someone else who's like, that's interesting. How are all these things interconnected?
Mhm.
What are we missing? And how do we get your whole organism to start functioning? That's really, to me, the benefit of functional medicine. While also keeping in mind, if there's big diagnosis that we need to make sure that we're not missing, that thinking cap is always on.
Mhm.
But, getting to those deeper roots and really offering hope in a solution is extraordinarily powerful.
I love to hear your enthusiasm about the curiosity. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the things I love about coaching, because no two clients are the same,
Yeah.
and it's never boring. It's always like this puzzle, what is here? What is to be revealed? And it's very exciting. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's such a good, yeah, that word curiosity. I think I remember having a mentor in school who would be like, my job is just to keep asking why. Like, we get to one layer and then you keep asking why, because everyone's unique. And even though two people can have a headache, how they manifest that headache, how they got to that headache is going to be totally different. In the cure, the treatment back to health could be very different, and it might actually be more similar to someone with a totally different diagnosis.
right.
And yeah, it keeps it fascinating and challenging and engaging.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your Facebook page? Because I
I'd love
joined
to.
that recently, and I got a beautiful, beautiful PDF with recipes and
Hmm.
some tips about healthy eating.
Yeah, I'd love that. So it's a Facebook group on the Mediterranean diet, and one of the perks, I think, of the group is that you get to see what a nerd I am about olive oil. It's something that I
I bought the
absolutely
olive oil you recommended, by the way.
good. I hope you enjoyed it. Because
Fabulous.
yeah, I really, really love olive oil, and I feel very connected, I think, to the Mediterranean, and in big part for me, I think because I come to a health journey with a lot of love and appreciation and enthusiasm around food, and contemplated being a chef, the food part is really exciting to me. But I also see how that conversation gets lost a lot of times between like really strict, restrictive diets, a lot of fads. You know, this diet conversation can just make your head explode. Like, should I eat carbs? Should I not eat carbs? Should I eat fat? Should I not eat fat? Eggs are going to kill you. Bacon's going to kill you. And so to me, the Mediterranean diet is almost like my North Star. It's like the place that I feel like I can go back to again and again. On the one hand, because there's so much solid evidence for it. You know, one of the things I think I quote in the PDF is that there's a study that it reduces all-cause mortality by 70%. So that means all causes of death are reduced by the adhering to a Mediterranean diet, exercising, and not smoking. And I feel like it's just this really common sense, you know, there's an appreciation for the land, for produce, for product, for the artisanal production of food. And then you get that and you're eating in community and you're celebrating the seasons. And it, to me, in a lot of ways, it's also not dogmatic. It's not vegan, it's not vegetarian, it's not gluten-free, it's not dairy-free. It allows for all those adjustments when you use it therapeutically, but it's this place that I think reminds us that we can celebrate food, that it has the ability to make us healthier, that it can create healthier community. So the Mediterranean Facebook group is an ode to that. And then we also talk about how to implement the diet, mind body, because that's a super fascinating connection for me. And then we dive into the science itself, usually on Fridays. So it's a really fun place. I go on Facebook Lives, which probably my old self never thought that that would be a venue that I would pop in, but I'm really enjoying it and it's really fun. So that's the Facebook group.
Yeah, just to speak to the PDF, when I was reading it, I mean, you do offer suggestions for people who have specific allergies or preferences. So it's very inclusive. It's kind of for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's it's an inclusive template. Like, I'm gluten-free, and so my Mediterranean diet is gluten-free. I have family members who don't do dairy, so we adjust. It allows for those adjustments. And I think at its core, it has a lot of principles. You know, it has meat, but it's not heavy on meat. It's heavy on vegetables. It has whole grains. It has legumes. It's high in fiber. It's got that wonderful olive oil. And I think it's also something for the long term. Like, it's a lifestyle. It's a long-term lifestyle. And things might look different in the short term when you're therapeutically treating somebody. But we all need that answer of like, what do I eat so I get to 80 or 90? And I think the Mediterranean diet is a really delicious way to do that.
Yeah. Or 101. One of my mentors is 101. If you can.
I think I saw your pictures with her. Yes. It's funny. I have a client that I worked with when there was a small period of time that I just did cooking with people in their kitchen. And one day he looks at me and he looked at my teeth. I have no idea why. And he's like, I think you're going to live to be 120. And I was like, okay, from your mouth to God's ears, we hope, you know, like healthy and happy at 120. So you never know.
Well, that's a lovely thought.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you want to talk about, I know you're based in California, correct? So what if somebody wants to see you and they're out of state? Would that prohibit working with you?
So I will say yes and no. So by my license, I'm required to work with people who live in the state of California. So they have to be residents of California. However, there is in the works a couple ways to work with me without having to be a California resident. So I'll be launching actually a new program in January that you can join from anywhere in the US or anywhere in the world. And that will start on January 20th. And then I'm in the process, just started, of iterating on another group experience that would be a little bit more hands-on than the program will be in January, but that won't be tied to location. So I would say TBD, to be determined, but in the works. And there'll be that chance for sure come the end of January.
Okay, and I'll actually add it to the video, but would you tell us your website so people can
Yes.
find you? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's my first and one of my last names, ND. So it's Antonella Aguilera, N as in natural, D as in doctor.com. So Antonella Aguilera, ND.com.
Okay, great. I'll make sure that that's on the video.
Okay. That
Wonderful.
sounds good.
And I just wanted to kind of wrap by mentioning a study that I recently heard about. I'm on, along with a gazillion other people, on Mark Hyman's, email list because I'm a
Yeah.
fan of his work. And there was a
Mhm.
study recently in JAMA about functional medicine and a
Yeah.
protocol at the Cleveland Clinic, which
Hmm.
was really exciting. So it had two groups, one that was following a traditional, I guess, protocol, and then one that followed the functional medicine. And at 6 months, they were far improved. It sustained through 12 months.
Hmm.
And then they found that the patient's results were, in addition to that great sort of statistic at 6 and 12 months, after that, it was less likely to revert back to earlier patterns or
Hmm.
disease or whatever the presenting problem might have been. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's really inspiring because it provides motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think what the study did and really brings to the conversation is that if you take the time to really dig under those root causes, I know that that's a word that's thrown out there a lot, but like when you actually do address those root causes, it sometimes takes a little bit longer to see the improvement, although in the study, people were doing better at 6 months. So, that might call that into question, but that you're actually healing the underlying cause, you're going to get more longevity, more time without those concerns or symptoms because you're not just putting a band-aid on it, that you're really addressing that underlying reason for that symptom of being there. You're going to get more long-lasting, sustainable health and well-being. And I think that's really the magic. You have to roll up your sleeves early on and maybe change your diet and incorporate deep breathing or meditation or yoga or a walking group with friends. And that takes more effort than maybe the conventional approach. But the payoff is just so much more and long lasting. If you do address it at the root cause.
Yeah. Well, it keeps on giving, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
those habits are just like filling your tank and knowing how to do it.
Absolutely. And I think it shows too, like how resilient the body is. Like put in the right environment, the body does want to be well and to create health. And so once you learn how to do that, it is the gift that keeps on giving, because then those habits are going to build on themselves, and
Right.
you're going to think, well, there's no way I'm going to stop drinking water and eating my dark leafy greens. I feel too good to stop. And so you
Exactly.
continue, and
Yeah.
that builds upon itself. And
Yeah.
then you've got the tools to really keep it up.
Yeah. I love telling clients when they make these little changes, which are always hard at first, I say,
Mm-hmm.
listen, these are like Velcro. Once you get them going, like all the other good stuff is just going to stick,
That's such a good,
and
that's
it
such a good analogy.
brings it along. So,
Mm-hmm.
well, gosh, this has been so much fun talking with
Yeah,
you.
likewise. I feel like once you get me talking, no one's going to stop me.
No, it's really fun. And I know we met in San Francisco when you came to a
Mm-hmm.
heart math program, and I know you're very busy. So I appreciate all your support and for taking the time to talk to the Resilience for Life.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me, for giving me this opportunity. I've had a lot of fun.